The Strong Wife. Chapter 1. A Quiet Beginning. In a small village on the edge of the city, nestled between dusty roads and fields of golden wheat, lived a woman named Mira. She was not famous. She didn't wear jewels or expensive clothes, but everyone in the village knew her as the wife of Raghov, the mechanic, and more importantly, as a woman who never gave up. Mira married Raghov when she was just 19. It was not a love marriage, nor was it a grand one. It was simple: 2 garlands, a humble meal, and blessings from elders. But even in its simplicity, Mira had hoped it would be the beginning of a happy life. Raghov had a small mechanic shop at the edge of the village. He earned just enough to feed them and pay the rent for their one-room house. He was kind-hearted, but often impatient. He loved Mira in his own rough way, bringing her sweets after work, making her laugh during dinner. She found happiness in the small things, but life, as it often does, had different plans. Chapter 2. Storms of Change. 2 years into their marriage, Mira gave birth to a baby boy, Arav. He was her world. Her mornings began with his giggles, and her nights ended with his soft breathing against her chest. She wanted him to grow up strong, educated, and better than the life they lived. But shortly after Arav's first birthday, Raghov fell seriously ill. It started with headaches and body pain. Then came weakness and weight loss. The doctor in the nearby town diagnosed him with tuberculosis. The treatment was long and expensive. Mira watched helplessly as Raghov's shop closed down. Their savings vanished within months. She sold her jewelry, her wedding bangles, their mother's gifted earrings, even her Mangal Sutra, to buy medicines. Raghov grew bitter. "I'm useless now," he would say. "You didn't marry me to suffer like this." But Mira never complained. "You're still my husband. I didn't marry your job. I married you." When others told her to return to her parents, she refused. "I'm his wife. I'll stand by him." She took small sewing jobs, cleaned houses, and even worked at a roadside tea stall just to keep food on the table. People whispered behind her back, "She works like a servant. A woman shouldn't do all this. It's shameful. She should leave him and remarry." But Mira kept her head high. Her strength wasn't in her muscles. It was in her will. Chapter 3. Carrying the weight. The days turned into months. Raghov's condition improved slowly, but he remained too weak to return to his mechanic shop. The medical expenses continued to pile up. Mira never let her worry show. She worked quietly, waking before sunrise and returning home after sunset. Her hands were rough, her back ached, but her eyes remained determined. Arav was now 3. He was full of energy, curious, and kind. Mira wanted to put him in a good school, but the fees were too high. Instead, she taught him letters and numbers every evening under the dim light of a lantern. One night, Raghov, sitting on the cot outside, watched Mira feeding their son. "You're doing everything," he said softly. "More than a wife should. I feel like a burden." Mira looked up, her face calm. "You are my husband, my partner. This is what marriage means. We carry each other." He held her hand for the first time in weeks. "You're stronger than I ever was." Chapter 4. The world tests her. When Raghov was well enough to walk, he started going out again. But the illness had left him insecure and irritable. He couldn't work long hours, and when he did, he earned very little. Frustrated, he took to drinking at night. Mira was heartbroken. The man she had stood beside in sickness was now drowning in shame and alcohol. "Raghov," she pleaded one night, "our son needs his father. Don't let him grow up without seeing your strength." But he shouted, "Don't tell me what to do. You think you're above me now? Just because you're earning more?" That night, Mira sat alone, tears rolling down her cheeks. Not because of the pain in his words, but because she knew he was hurting too. She didn't leave. She didn't scream. Instead, the next day, she visited a local counselor and asked for help. It was a long process, but slowly, Raghav began attending sessions, and over time, the drinking lessened. Even as people mocked her for tolerating too much, Mira stayed strong. She believed in healing, not abandonment. Chapter 5. A Spark in the Darkness. One afternoon, while stitching blouses for a local boutique, Mira heard about a women's training center in the city that offered free tailoring and entrepreneurship workshops. It was run by a nonprofit, and they helped women like her start their own businesses. Mira hesitated. Who would care for Arav and Raghav while she traveled to the city? But something inside her stirred. She sat with Raghav that evening. "There's a chance I can learn better skills, maybe open my own shop. But I need your support." Raghav, quieter these days, looked at her. "You've supported me for years. It's time I do something right. Go, I'll take care of Arav." It wasn't easy. Mira woke at 4 a.m., prepared meals, bathed Arav, set the house in order, and took the 6 a.m. bus to the city for her classes. She returned by evening, exhausted but excited. For the first time in years, she felt hopeful, not just for survival, but for growth. Chapter 6. Building Dreams. After 6 months of daily travel and hard work, Mira completed her training. She had learned not only advanced tailoring techniques, but also how to manage accounts, talk to customers, and run a small business. The training center offered a small loan to help women like her start their own ventures. Mira applied and was approved. She used the money to rent a tiny space near the market. With leftover fabric, a borrowed machine, and the help of 2 other women from her neighborhood, Mira opened Mira's Stitch and Style. It wasn't glamorous. The walls were cracked, and the signboard was hand-painted, but it was hers. At first, customers were few. But as word spread about her affordable prices and honest work, more women started coming. Raghav helped watch over Arav. He slowly started repairing bicycles in front of their home. He was still recovering, physically and emotionally, but he was trying. Each night, Mira closed the shop with tired hands, but a proud heart. She was no longer just someone's wife or someone's mother. She was a business owner, a provider, a builder of dreams. Chapter 7. Standing Tall. Within a year, Mira's shop expanded. She hired 2 more women, widows who had no support. She taught them how to sew and earn a living. Together, they formed a small team of hard-working women. One day, a woman came into the shop wearing heavy gold jewelry and a silk sari. She looked around with a raised eyebrow and said, "You're Mira, right? I heard you work like a man." Mira smiled politely. "No, madam, I work like a woman because women are strong too." The customer blinked, then smiled and placed an order. Later that week, the local school invited Mira to give a talk to girls about courage and self-respect. She stood on a small stage in front of rows of students and told her story, not with pride, but with honesty. "I was scared. I was tired. But I kept going, not because I was fearless, but because I had no choice. Life will test you, but you must choose how to answer." The applause was loud, but Mira's eyes were on a little girl in the front row who smiled up at her, wide-eyed. That smile meant more than any award. Chapter 8. When the Storm Returns. Just as life seemed stable, tragedy knocked again. Arav, now 9 years old, collapsed during school. The diagnosis, a rare heart condition. Surgery was urgent and expensive. Mira's heart sank. She had some savings, but not enough. She sold her gold loan papers, closed her shop temporarily, and applied for government assistance. Raghav, holding her hand tightly at the hospital, whispered, "We'll get through this. Together." For a moment, she felt weak again, but only for a moment. Then she got up, put on her simple sari, and visited every local MLA office, every trust, every charity she could. She wrote letters, made phone calls, knocked on doors. She spoke at events, explaining her son's condition, not for sympathy, but for help. And people responded. Strangers donated. A charity hospital agreed to lower the surgery cost. Her old customers helped organize a fundraiser. 3 months later, Arav's surgery was completed successfully. As Mira stood beside his hospital bed, watching him breathe peacefully, she finally let her tears fall, not from sadness, but from relief. Chapter 9. The Woman Everyone Respects. News of Mira's struggle and strength spread. A local newspaper published a feature titled, "The Woman Who Didn't Break." People began to treat her differently, not with pity, but with respect. The mayor visited her shop and offered to help expand her tailoring unit through a government grant for women entrepreneurs. She accepted, but only on one condition. "I want to teach others. Give me a space where I can train women who have no support." That year, Mira founded Shakti Stitches, a center for widows, single mothers, and women from underprivileged backgrounds. She trained more than 50 women in the first year alone. At the inauguration ceremony, she gave a short speech. "I was once a scared girl, a worried mother, a helpless wife. But life made me strong. And now I want every woman to know, strength is not something we are born with. It is something we become." Raghav stood in the crowd with Arav, clapping with pride. The man who once felt like a burden now smiled with pride, knowing he had married not just a wife, but a warrior. Chapter 10. The Strength Within. Years passed. Arav grew into a fine young man, studying engineering in the city. Raghav, healthier and happier, ran a small bicycle repair shop with 2 assistants. Mira continued to lead the training center, expanding into nearby districts. Her name was now known across the region, not as Raghav's wife, but as Mira Devi, the strong woman of Dharampur. One morning, a young woman entered her center with a baby in her arms and tears in her eyes. "My husband left me. I have nothing." Mira took her hand and said, "Then you have everything you need, because from now on, you'll rise, just like I did." Mira had found her calling, not just to survive, but to lift others with her. As she sat at her desk that evening, overlooking rows of women working and laughing, she smiled. She was no longer just the strong wife. She was the strong woman.